Hey everyone and welcome back to Final Fantasy XIV, where today it is time for Triple Triad. Honestly, there's not really too much to say. We've done a little bit of Triple Triad in the past, we got a whole bunch of cards and beat a whole bunch of opponents. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be running through all of the opponents who became available when Triple Triad initially released in patch 2.51, I believe? I believe it was 2.51. We're going to run through all of them, who we haven't already fought, get all their cards, and try to aim for a completion of our card list up through everything that was released through when Triple Triad launched, which I think is up through card 67? I think this is the last card that was added when Triple Triad launched. And then also most of the cards on this page were added at that time too, but these are a lot harder to get, we'll say. There's a lot of interesting conditions tied to them, namely winning in tournaments, or completing certain seasonal events, or just good damn luck from basically card packs. But I guess before we get started with fighting opponents, there are a few cards that I think we can only really get from the Triple Triad Trader. Let me go ahead and pull up the list just to be absolutely sure. Alright, I went ahead and scrolled through the list real quick. It looks like there's about 3 or 4 cards from the first set, which only come from the... I believe it's the silver? Yeah, the silver Triad card sets. One of them can also come from a platinum set, which is funny. Let me double check that. Yeah, one comes from a silver or a platinum card set. But there's like 3 or 4 that only come from these silver card sets. That said, there is one card from the initial set of 67 that we can buy directly, and that is Nanamo Ul'dah. Nanamo Ul'Namo, my mistake. Okay, that is card number 63, let me mark that off. It is marked off on my list, and now I guess I can just buy a whole bunch of silver cards until I have all the ones I'm looking for. I do have a few cards I have one card I can sell. Yeah, I guess I can just buy silver Triple Triad cards until I get the ones I'm looking for out of packs that can only come from packs, because yay. Alright, I went ahead and bought a pack of just 10 silver Triple Triad cards and opened them all up. And I got 7 of the 14 cards available in the Triple Triad pack for silver rank. Let's see. I actually got a Mul'dah, which we can get directly from dueling someone, so that'll make one of our later duels easier since we don't have to repeat it for the card that we need to win. We got the Tataru Taru card. And this one does only come from the silver pack. We got the Kobold card, which again also comes from the silver pack. Let me check if there's any others we need to get real quick before we move on. Alright, nope, looking through the list, it looks like those are the only 2 cards, Tataru Taru and, oh god, Kobold. Tataru Taru and Kobold are the ones that you can only get from Silver Triple Triad. The rest I can just sell right back for you to get some of my MGP back. Hooray! A refund, effectively. Alright then. I will be back in a little bit, and we're gonna just start, I guess, running through all the opponents that are originally in 2.51 one at a time. Just run through them one at a time. There's not really too much commentary to add because it is just Triple Triad, but I guess I can, in post-commentary, add explanations of how Triple Triad works now that I have a much better understanding. I've been playing a lot of Triple Triad on my main, so I've got a much better understanding of the game now. So I should be able to explain it a lot better too. So let's go ahead and just start running through and seeing what we can grab and who we can fight. Alright, let's start this montage out. So, Triple Triad, each player is going to start with 5 cards, which you can play onto a 3x3 grid. And the winner of each match is whoever has the most cards at the end of the match. You can claim your opponent's cards in order to gain points and therefore win the match by playing your cards appropriately. So, at the start of each match, it will be randomly determined who gets to play first. There are advantages to playing first, there are advantages to playing second. On each of your cards, there will be 4 numbers, one for each side, top, left, right, and bottom. When you play a card, and only when you play a card, it will check any cards adjacent to wherever you played your card. So you pick a spot, an empty spot on the board where you play your card, and it will check the spots surrounding where you played it. If there are any cards adjacent to your card, it'll compare the numbers. For example, if there's a card to your card's left, it'll compare your card's left number with the adjacent card's right number. If your card's number is higher, explicitly higher, you will claim your opponent's card and gain a point. Conversely, if your opponent plays a card and their adjacent number is higher than your adjacent number, they will claim your card. Special rules will make this a lot more interesting and change up how it works. There are regional rules which apply to every NPCs in a map, and those will change occasionally they will change on a daily basis at about 7 a.m. US Pacific, 10 a.m. US Eastern. And those special rules will be those regional rules will be applied to your match. Individual NPCs may also have individual rules, which will always be applied to them regardless of time. Those do not change from day to day. So, combination of regional rules and individual rules, you can have up to 4 special rules in play on one game, and it can get a little bit complicated. So, let's go over what the individual special rules are. First off, all open. While all open is in play, all 5 cards in both decks are visible to both players, so you can see every single card your opponent has, but your opponent can see every single card you have. Gives you a lot more opportunity to plan ahead on what cards you're going to play and where, but gives the same advantage to your opponent. Though I do not believe the NPCs actually make use of this rule too much. I want to believe they don't make use of it too much. There's also 3 open, where 3 cards from your opponent's deck are visible to you, and 3 cards from your deck are visible to your opponent. Before they are played, of course. Which gives a partial advantage, not quite as strong as all open, but it gives you a little bit of extra information. Next up is the same rule. Same is one of my favorite rules, one of my 2 favorite rules. Same makes it so that if you have 2 cards adjacent to the card you just played, and this also works conversely for your opponent. If you play a card and there are 2 cards adjacent to it, so say there's a card to your card's left and a card to your card's bottom. If the card to your card's left, if the touching number, so the left card's right number, is the same number as your card's left number, and say there's another card on the bottom, your card's bottom number is the same as the bottom card's top number, if it's same and same, if the numbers match for both of the adjacent cards, you will claim both of those cards. And it doesn't have to be opponent's cards that are adjacent to yours. You can actually use your own cards to match up for same. But the only cards that can be claimed are the ones that are adjacent and being compared in the same rule. Where the adjacent numbers are the same. It is possibly a little bit hard to explain without examples or graphics, so hopefully you'll be able to see it in my own matches. You'll be able to see me using the same rule. Though I'm not keeping too much of the individual matches. I'm just keeping the winning matches, so hopefully you'll be able to see that in play. So hopefully it'll make a bit more sense. But it's basically, if your numbers are the same as adjacent card numbers for at least 2 adjacent cards, then you claim all of those adjacent cards. Extra bonus for the same rule is it actually leads to kind of like a ripple effect, where whenever a card is flipped by the same rule, it will then act as if you personally just played that card, and then will compare it to its own adjacent cards. So you can get combo effects like this. Effectively claiming further cards. You can claim a lot of further cards. I don't believe you can get the same rule to apply again on those cards you've claimed, but if those cards have stronger numbers than their own adjacent cards, you claim those further adjacent cards, and it keeps going until it's run out of possible claims to make, which is really fun. Next up is the plus rule, which is similar to same, but instead of saying that the numbers have to be the same between your card and its adjacent cards, what it looks at is the sum of the numbers. So, an example. Let's say you play a card with a 3 on the left and a 1 on the bottom. To your card's left is a card with a 5 on the right. So, your left plus the left card's right is 3 plus 5 is 8. Now, there's also a card adjacent to your card on the bottom. You have a 1 on your card's bottom, and this card below you has a 7 on top. 1 on your bottom plus 7 on their top is 8. Hey, look, those numbers are the same. The 8 sum on the left, the 8 sum on the bottom, awesome. They add up to the same number. You claim both cards. And the combo there works just the same as the same rule, where it acts as if you just played that card, and it will claim any adjacent cards that are weaker than it, and so on and so forth until it runs out of until there are no more adjacent cards to claim that are weaker. Fun! Very, very powerful rule. I love same and plus. They can be used to extremely powerful effect. They can be a little bit complicated to wrap your head around. Hopefully there are some good examples in the montage that will help you to get a better understanding of it, but it's a very powerful rule once you understand it. Conversely, your opponent can use it to very powerful effect against you. So be careful of that. Sudden death. When the sudden death rule is in effect, if a match ends in a draw, we'll restart from turn 1, and each player will have new decks. Your new deck for the match will consist of the cards you had that weren't claimed in the previous match, plus any cards that you did claim. So any cards that were your color at the end of the previous match, that is your deck. Same for your opponent. Any cards that were their color at the end of the previous match, that's their deck. And it just keeps going on over and over every time there's a tie until somebody wins. You can get in some very interesting stuck scenarios with this if both players are equally matched and their decks are equally matched, where you just keep doing sudden death over and over. It can get messy. The random rule. Okay, the random rule. I haven't actually seen this one yet, but when the random rule is in effect, our chosen deck will be replaced with 5 cards selected randomly from our entire card list, apparently. I've never seen this rule. That sounds terrifying, actually. That means we have no control over our deck. We have to basically just hope our cards are good. Hope our random cards are good. Next rule is order. While order is in play, you have to play each card in the order that it appears in your deck. So, left to right, top to bottom. You have to play them in specific order. Fun. Chaos. While Chaos is in play, the only card you can play each turn is randomly selected from your deck. Yay! You have to play a random card each time. These order and Chaos in particular really challenges your ability to adapt on the fly. While order you can kind of circumvent by like putting your cards in a particular order that is advantageous given, especially if you know what your opponent's deck is. If you know what your opponent's deck is, you can use the order rule to your advantage and arrange your cards in a particular order that gives you a winning strategy. Reverse. While reverse is in effect, the conditions for capturing cards are inverted. Smaller numbers will be more powerful than larger numbers. So, while normally a 6 will capture a 1, with reverse in effect, a 1 will capture a 6. Fallen Ace. Normally, if a card has an ace on one of its sides, that ace counts as a 10. Ace is basically equivalent to a 10. And it's basically unbeatable. It cannot be beaten by any other number. But if Fallen Ace is in effect, 1 can capture ace. Fun! Fun. Let's see. Ascension. When Ascension is in play, if you place a faction card on the board, factions being Primals, Scions, Garleans, and there might be 1 or 2 more, but that might also be it. If you place a faction card on the board, and they'll have like a little symbol on the top right to tell you what faction they are, all cards of that faction will get +1 to each of their sides, both in your hand and on the field, and all of your opponent's cards of that same faction. Any card that increases to an 11 or higher is treated as an ace / a 10. Wait, is ace 11 or is ace 10? Ace is either 11 or 10. I forgore. We'll just have to figure out through experiment. You could experiment with the plus rule, I think would be the best way to figure out if it's a 10 or an 11. Dissension is the reverse of Ascension. If you place a faction card on the board, all cards of that faction, both in your hand, your opponent's hand, and on the field, will have all their sides decreased by 1. And if it's decreased to a 0 or less, it's treated as a 1. Swap. When swap is in effect, one card from our deck is swapped with one of our opponent's cards before the match begins. These cards are random, are chosen at random, and of course you'll get your card back at the end of the match. Next up is roulette. When roulette is in effect, that rule is replaced with a random rule. So roulette can be literally any of the rules, any of the special rules. Fun! Love that. Next up, let's see. The only other rules I am seeing on the list are things that are used in like special player versus player tournaments. So those are going to be draft, which was added in patch 5.4. When draft is in effect, participants will not have access to their individual decks and must instead play using cards provided by the Gold Saucer. Ooh, so you get a set of cards you can pick from, provided at random by the Gold Saucer, and you have to pick which cards you think will be best. Interesting. That's gonna be, that's gonna be a pretty challenging rule set to play with. And I think, as far as I can tell, that's about it for all the special rules. So let's go ahead and let the rest of the montage play out, and then at the end, let's see, at the very end of this, after the montage, I did get 2 additional cards, or maybe it was 3 additional cards from achievements. There are achievements for getting certain number of cards in our deck. Or sorry, not in our deck, in our card list. For getting a certain number of cards into our card list, we will get achievements, and some of those achievements will give additional cards. There are also achievements for beating certain numbers of different Triple Triad players, or Triple Triad NPC players. And we get additional cards from those achievements as well. I believe I got a couple of cards from those. There were also a couple of cards from the card packs, from the booster packs that you get from the Gold Saucer, that I did not get in the initial set, and I do make sure to pick those up as well. Other than that, let's just go ahead and let the montage play out the rest of the way, and that's about it for Triple Triad rules. I wish I could explain Same and Plus better. Those are really powerful rules, but they can be really hard to understand at first. But once you do understand them, they are very, very powerful rules and very fun rules to make use of. But yeah, with that, I'll just go ahead and leave you here. We'll play out the rest of the montage, and next time on Final Fantasy XIV, what are we doing now that Triple Triad is done? Post-Moogle! Looks like we're moving on to Post-Moogle. And this coming week will also have us finishing up the last dungeons in A Realm Reborn. Alright, I will see everyone next time. For that, I guess I might as well also mention that the opponents and cards we are facing and getting today are the opponents and cards that were added in patch 2.55 when Triple Triad was initially released. There are a few opponents and cards we got in previous episodes, namely if they came from trials or dungeons or other duties, or some NPCs we fought in previous episodes. There was a time really early on in the playthrough where we did some initial Triple Triad. If there's anyone missing from here, go back and check that earlier video to see who those are. And if there's anyone we have not faced today, either today or in that previous video, then they were not Triple Triad opponents in patch 2.55, and we will be getting to them later. Alright, I will see everyone next time for some Post-Moogle.